Now, back to Ed Flash Ferens with America's Workforce.
And we're back. It's America's Workforce. Don't forget we're available on various platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify. And when you get an opportunity, just sign up, receive our shows on a regular basis. Give us a rating, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating. And if you don't like the show, give us 3 stars. We'll appreciate any kind of rating. All right, just kidding. Just kidding. That's your choice, whatever you want to do. Let's go to line number 1. And by the way, this next segment brought to you in part by the Ohio Federation of Teachers. You can find them online at oft-aft.org. Pete Ielmini is his name, and he is with the Heat and Frost Insulators, LMCT, Mechanical Insulators, LMCT.com is a website. We usually talk about what the Heat and Frost Insulators are doing, the apprenticeship programs, and boy, they do a lot with regard to safety. But today, the fact is, we've got elections happening right now, but the final count will be on November 3rd, just 6 days away, and a lot of labor organizations are very, very involved in informing their members, and that's what we're going to talk about on the show today. Pete, my Jersey guy, how we doing today, buddy?
Hey, how you doing today?
I love this guy. Just love this guy. All right, getting out the vote. I know you've been involved in labor since the 80s, long time. You've seen a lot of presidents come and go, a lot of local officials, governors, mayors, and all that. You've been involved in the political process, and everybody should be involved in the political process, not just union brothers and sisters. It's important. People fought and died for our right to vote, so it's important that you exercise that right. So talk to me about getting out the vote. What are you doing? What's the Heat and Frost Insulators doing, Pete?
Well, we're doing everything we possibly can to educate our members and to educate the public on what is best for our industry, what is best for unionized construction. We always say you have to vote with your wallet in mind and your family in mind. These are the things that matter. Now, the slogan, get out the vote, that's used a lot. It's seen a lot. Gosh, you see it on TV, on Major League Sports. You see it on the NFL. And a lot of people, a lot of organizations are emphasizing the importance of voting. We live in a democratic society, and it's so important that we exercise a democratic right and a privilege to be able to vote. But when I see get out the vote, to me that's two things. That has two meanings to it. One, it's a meaning for yourself to be able to go out and cast your vote. You've got to cast your vote for the politician or the candidate that you feel is going to best serve you and your interest. And get out the vote also means to be able to have others and assist others to be able to cast their vote as well. Nobody likes to be told, and nobody should be told who to vote for. And that's something that I feel very passionately about. I never tell anyone who they should vote for. However, I will have a conversation and a dialogue to talk about the candidates that have the same values or the same ideals that I may have or we may have in the union construction field. We have to vote for politicians that are going to help us with legislation that's going to use unionized labor. That's so important for obvious reasons. There's a lot of public work that is done, a lot of public money that is spent, and we have to exercise our vote and share that education with others so that our country or our state or our local leaders are going to spend public money in a direction that's going to help our working families. So get out the vote is extremely important. Get yourself out to vote. Get your family out to vote. Get your friends. Get your coworkers out to vote. Some people may need help getting to the polling place for transportation issues is one big item. One thing we like to be able to help out. I know I've helped out many years senior citizens in my town that can't drive or don't drive, be able to help them, drive them to the polling place, whatever we can do to be able to get the vote out. And that's what we do.
One of the problems, and this has been going on for years, and I think it's just getting worse because of social media, information and misinformation. And it seems like misinformation has picked up dramatically over the years. A lot of people are confused, and I have to ask you, on behalf of the Heat and Frost Insulators, I know you're speaking for them, where do you get the good intel? Where do you get the good information? That's the big question today.
Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad you brought that to our attention. It's getting good intel. You know, it's amazing if you're in a football fantasy league, you can go to the internet and you can find out anything that you want about stats with the NFL. You can get the quarterback. We'll have a super rating and line up with Mars and Venus and Jupiter, and you can make predictions based on that. It's incredible. But to listen and to get good information about politicians is becoming rather difficult. And you said it. Social media and the media on TV, on the internet, on cable and satellite TV, it's rather difficult. It's almost impossible to have a unbiased news source. The days of Walter Cronkite and Harry Reasoner, where America tuned in and they got the facts, unbiased facts. Those days are limited. We don't seem to have that anymore. Not to say it's not there. You just got to find it. In my world, in the union construction world, one thing that we hold dear is that we rely on the information of our union leaders. Every union leader, regardless of the type of union, big or small, have access to the proper information, the proper intel, if you will, on the candidates that are going to be good for us. If you are part of a union, and not everybody is, I understand that, but if you are, rely on the leaders of your organization, either at the meetings or call them up or call up your union rep. And if they don't have the information to answer your question at their fingertips, they have the resources to be able to do that. We have the National Building Trades, AFL-CIO. They can go all the way up to the top. But there's an army of people in those organizations that can help out with understanding the facts and who was actually good, and look at their voting records. If it's going to be an incumbent, whether it be a president, whether it be a congressman, a senator on the federal level, and even on the state level, they can access the voting records of where they stood on prior issues, or did they even vote at all? I always like to hold our politicians accountable, and you got to vote on issues. You got to be able at one point make a decision and either pass legislation and turn it down, and the reasons why. And as a former union leader, I had those resources available, but before I became a union leader, I always relied on the leaders of the union. Now, if you're not part of a union, you can still access some of those news media outlets, either on the internet or online, to be able to help make those decisions. If you're in construction and you're not union, I want to recommend you do join a union. But if not, you're still in construction and you still have some of the same desires as a union worker does. You can still go to the AFL-CIO website and see who they are endorsing and what the issues are. And let's be clear. We're not just talking about on the federal level. We have local elections that are just as important. You have mayors of cities and towns. You have town councils. You have Board of Education issues that are extremely important for working families. I know. right in my town, one of the hot elections right now is the Board of Education. It's not a secret with this COVID-19 and the virus and the regulations of schools, what to do in person, online, resources, funding. Board of Educations, and I'm sure it's pretty common throughout the country, Board of Education's elections are pretty hot. It's not getting national news coverage, but it's a hot item in many towns. But
you're right.
But to get the information, though, you can do a little research. If you can do the research for your NFL fantasy league, or get your research on celebrity gossip, you can do your research on politicians that are running for office.
You got a good point there. Focus on people that are going to make a difference in your life. All right. Pete, I got to take a break here. Pete Ielmini, on behalf of the Heat and Frost Insulators, we'll continue the conversation, getting out the vote, getting informed on the choices that are available to you. So darn important. Sam Lesh, on behalf of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, will be joining us. They had a pretty good contract win out in California. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about what a future Trump administration will do with regulations. Pretty scary stuff. It's all part of America's Workforce. Back in a few minutes. Don't go away.
This is America's Workforce. Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
Hey, we're back. It's America's Workforce. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, AWF Union Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter. Twitter handle is at AWF Union Podcast. By the way, this next segment brought to you in part by the fine folks at the United Labor Agency, trying to desperately connect people with employment. 216-666-2185. Or check them out online at ulagency.org. Let's go back to our live line. Rejoin Pete Ielmini on behalf of the Heat and Frost Insulators. Insulators.org is a general website. Pete's with the Labor Management Group, LMCT, and that's Mechanical Insulators, LMCT.com. We're talking about getting out the vote, 6 days till Election Day. Before we move on here, you're in Jersey, I should say. Joycey. How are things there? What do you have an extension on vote? We're hearing a whole bunch about early voting and all that. I just want to get a flavor. We've been talking to a number of union folks around the country in respective state. Every state's different. What's the status in New Jersey, Pete?
The status in New Jersey is everyone was mailed a ballot. Ballots went out. I'm going to say about 2-3 weeks ago, and because of the COVID virus, everyone is encouraged to be able to vote by mail. Used to be an absentee ballot. Now it's voting by mail. The virus definitely has changed the way we do things in New Jersey. They have changed the way we do everything in this country. Every state has their issues. The virus seems to be on a little bit of an uptake as it is around the country. We had a good handle on this. We went through hell in the springtime and the summer. It seemed to be taking its downward trajectory to a sense of normalcy. We were getting closer, but the last 3 or 4 weeks has been an uptake in positive cases, and we're starting to revert back to some of the lockdown procedures that we had before. I shouldn't say lockdown. Some of the restrictions.
Yeah.
In Newark, which is the biggest city in the state, they just reinstated a curfew of restaurants of 8 p.m., 8 o'clock. We still have inside dining up to 25%, outside dining, and keeping social distancing. But there are some hot pockets in the state that it's being addressed, and our governor is on it. He's not too popular right now because he's making some hard decisions, but that's right. That's just part of it. And it's funny, we're talking about getting out to vote and the importance of casting your voice and your ballot, and you got to elect officials that that are worried about leading their area, regardless of popularity. And we all can complain about politicians, and I do the same thing, but I do respect the ones that make the hard decisions. And that's what's happening here.
It's tough for a lot of governors. That word lockdown scares a lot of people. It's also polarizing. I mean, look what happened in Michigan with the governor there. I mean, it's just there's a crazy world out there. But the bottom line is those in charge want to keep the general population safe, and that is not an easy task. No doubt about that. I want to get back to the vote here, and we talked in the first segment about informing union brothers and sisters, and that's primarily our audience. I do this show out of Local 17 for the iron workers, and they've done a pretty good job of informing their members on where the candidates stand. And just going to the top of the ticket, Biden can do this, his record reflects this, here's Trump. And it's important that people pick up that information. But on the other hand, there's a lot of information out there, and it's information overload. You were talking about Walter Cronkite, Harry Reasoner. There used to be 3 TV channels. Now there's 500-600 of them, and there's a lot of confusion out there. Any advice, Pete, that you can give to those listening right now, how to sift through that and get the most current, the most accurate information out there?
Sure. I said it earlier. Probably the most accurate information and what you really need to hear is what our union leaders are expressing their education of what the candidates are. They get right down to it. Listening to the major networks, they're influenced by their ads, by the people that advertise. They have to listen to that. They listen to the social media influence. And news today, it's almost entertainment. It's not the news. It's entertainment. Mm-hmm. And the news broadcasts have to talk about items that their viewers want to be able to hear. And you nailed it right on the head. It is so competitive in that market. And to have a person sit at the desk and read off the facts unbiased is not sexy. It's not entertaining. And no one's going to watch that. People want to flip to a channel that's going to be snappy. It's going to have sound bites. It's going to have things that are controversial and interesting. We live in an entertainment star society. The attention spans are 30 seconds, and you have to get people's attentions in 30 seconds. And this is how our culture is changing. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. It's just the way that it is. And a lot of the media outlets have to feel they have to entertain more than just give the facts out. And websites and social media and YouTube, you can find anything that you want to hear. But to sift through all that and to give it some sanity, you have to rely on the people that you rely on to lead, and that's going to be your union leaders. And even when a leader that you feel comfortable with and you feel that you have the information, if that politician is endorsing another leader, another politician, I should say, well, that's a lot in your favor of understanding. And one thing I like to be able to also add is that our leaders in this country, state and municipal levels, have to make decisions that hopefully we feel are the best for our concerns. And in order to support a politician, you don't always have to agree with that politician 100% of the time, all the time, 24/7. There may be some issues where you don't necessarily agree, but you also respect the decision and the way that person made that decision. And sometimes it's a compromise, but it definitely got to find the resources and find the time to be able to value your the respect of your vote, and it's your voice, and it's something that everyone should respect and give it some value. I remember when I was a kid, 10, 11, 12, and in the mid-'70s, having to watch my grandfather get dressed to go out to vote for a presidential election. And he used to put on a full suit, the pants, the suspenders, the jacket, the tie, the hat. I used to say, Grandpa, what are you getting dressed up for? We're going down to, he used to bring me, we're going down to the municipal building to vote. He goes, Pete, this is the presidential election. I'm casting a vote. I'm telling the federal government, I'm telling the other people in this country that it's important enough for me to vote. I want to make sure I look good doing it. I have that much respect for casting my vote. I'm getting dressed. That always stuck in my head. I mean, I don't think I ever got dressed up to go vote, but the value of the older generation and how important it was to vote, it always stuck in my head. It's a privilege to be able to go out and cast your vote. And I know there's a lot of sayings and a lot of meaning, and the fight for democracy and what we have done in this country for 250 years, to be able to have a society where it's a democratic society. Yeah, we got our issues. Yeah, we do our infighting. But still, it's still the best country in the world by far. And everyone has their part, everybody has their opinion, and everyone should go out there and cast their vote.
As far as your grandfather, that's why he was part of the greatest generation, my friend.
That's right. WW1 he was in. Yep.
There you go. There you go. All right, Pete, we're going to leave it on that note. Great job today. Hopefully everybody's going to heed your advice and do their civic duty and go out and vote and make sure you're informed about the candidates before you do that. There's a lot of information out there. Just sift through it. And once you feel comfortable, you go out and exercise that right. All right, Pete, you take care. We'll talk to you at the end of next month. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about, okay?
Yes, we will. Thank you.